Hey, welcome. It's Brian, and this is Guitar Solo Reactions. Today we are back with Cassiopeia, and we are doing the song Domino Line. I, about probably maybe a year and a half ago, did their big hit Galactic Funk. That video has tons and tons of views. And the video I did still gets continually a good amount of views, so I thought it'd be time to do another one. And I believe I did another one as well, right around when I did Galactic Funk, but it may have been blocked or something. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, we're back with Cassiopeia. Again, I don't know if it's Cassiopeia or Cassiopeia. I'm not sure. So anyway, cool kind of funky, kind of Fusac kind of stuff in that kind of Lee Ritenour kind of vein, I guess, a little more funkier, I guess, but kind of that cool 80s kind of fusion stuff that I grew up listening to. I've never really heard of this band, like if you watch the previous video, till I started doing these reaction things and no one recommended it. I was just kind of looking for great Japanese kind of fusion. I knew about Kasumi Watanabe. I was a huge fan of his and a great guitar player, really great records. So that kind of maybe led me to this. So anyway, if you like this kind of thing, please like, subscribe, and comment. And here we go, Domino Line. It's always fun to, I mean, the music has a lot of joy in it, and not necessarily my thing per se, but it's so great to see all the Yamaha gear. I forget what model of Yamaha guitar that is that like Carlos Santana used, and I forget this gentleman's name, but obviously a huge guitar player. I know from previous comments that this was a huge band in Japan. And the bass player using whatever Yamaha bass that was. And for me, it's kind of interesting because there was one music store when I first started playing guitar, maybe two, but there was one that all they had was Yamaha gear. I mean, Yamaha makes everything from horns to drums to, basically everything you would need to form a band. And it would always be fun to go in there, and they'd always have the higher end Yamaha stuff, and you weren't allowed to touch it basically, but it was always great to, look at it and all of that. And I went on to be a big Ibanez user, and I had a guitar made by Ibanez, an artist. That was a very expensive guitar at the time, and much like this, very, very heavy. And that's kind of why I got rid of it. It's just the weight. So kind of cool to see the gears. Hmm. Wow, that's cool. There we go. I think there's two things about that I think that are incredible, and one's kind of just a point of view. One is like nothing dates this music more than continually doing like the popping stuff on bass. One of my favorite kind of styles of playing, and I'd love to know who his influences were because it could have been like Chuck Rainey, maybe Larry Graham. I'm trying to think of the other big player that did that a ton. I don't think really Tony Levin, but he's doing it exclusively. So you kind of hear someone that predates obviously Victor Wooten, and like Victor Bailey and all of those guys that really took that technique and combined traditional, just kind of finger kind of playing, whatever you want to call that, almost like the classical technique for bass or something, and kind of took that to new heights where they're double thumbing and all of this super hyper technical stuff. But as a young player, there was a Lee Ritenour song called, I think it was called Rio Funk. And that was Tim Landers, I think, on bass. And that was really cool. It was kind of a great, kind of funky bass line. And I'm kind of blanking on the other player I was trying to think of. But anyway, lots of great players that did that. And this is very much of the time. So it's not a criticism. But it's just really cool that to see this. And, basically, I haven't really heard a player really do this in, well, decades. Drum solo. guitar solo now. There we have it, Cassiopeia doing the song Domino Line, where every member of the band took a solo. Really great players. Guitar playing wise, great guitar player. I think it's interesting to see him running a stereo rig. I'd love to see what was on that pedal board, but very much, this is just like literally a snapshot of like that early 80s, maybe mid 80s kind of fusion, kind of funk fusion, where the guitar tone wise, pretty good, but there's chorus on it. That was kind of a prerequisite for this kind of stuff. And tone wise, solid state amps, Yamaha amps were great. The Roland amps are great, but they have a pretty distinctive sound that, isn't negative. It isn't bad. It's just, for me, I love tube amps, and hearing Al Di Meola or whoever more on that kind of thing. I always love that kind of tone a little bit more, to be honest. But I'd love to kind of deep dive this band at some point, but we'll see how this one goes. And yeah, I'm trying to think of other bass players, honestly, that were doing that kind of popping stuff. And if you can think of an influence on either the guitar player or bass player, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Anyway, I am Brian. Thanks for watching. See you soon.